Who's winning? And who's up shit creek without a paddle? This is your stop for unbiased election projections with BS free talk, analysis, and one cranky politico's insight into the very future of the world you live in. Broadcasting from the gateway to the motherlode in Waterford, California. This is the Election Recon Podcast. And now, he's carpet-bombing partisan zealots back to the Stone Age by delivering cold, hard reality to the fanatics first class. Your host, Army veteran, political operative, and election junkie, Josh Whitfield.
Welcome to episode 11 of the Election Recon Podcast. We are a day late, but not $1 short. It is Friday, October the 14th, here from the beautiful Central Valley, meeting the motherlode, foothills of California, in the great city of Waterford, California. Welcome to the Oasis of Reality. Of course, I'm your host, Josh Whitfield, and that is my co-host, Alyssa Silva. Fan favorite.
I don't know about that.
Apolitical Gen Z voice. Alyssa, 25 days to go.
Thank God.
Thank God indeed. I am so over this election cycle, I can spit. I'm done with it. The partisan zealotry, even worse than 2020, 18 and 16. The insanity from the polling industry, it's just lost. Alyssa, we literally saw a poll from Center Street PAC yesterday. They polled 144 total in the poll in an entire congressional district. I don't even know what to say. If that was my pollster and that was my congressional campaign, and you know I do a lot of congressional work, they would be fired before the polling packet could be put to the shredder. They would have been fired from the time it took me to get to my desk and send that son of a bitch packet straight into the shredder. It's malpractice. And of course, it's a Democrat-heavy poll. Center Street PAC, despite its name, is not center of anything. It's absolutely a leftist political organization. But my point is, and I don't care that they're a Democrat political organization. Okay, there's internal Republican polls, internal Democrat polls. That's not what bothers me. That they're a leftist organization. What bothers me is they had the audacity to put that poll out as if it was legitimate. And many people will see their social media accounts and their stuff, their newsletters, or wherever the hell they're putting that poll out and believe it. It's political malpractice, and people wonder, especially people on the left, Alyssa. I get questions from Democrats all the time. What is it with Republicans that they don't trust elections anymore? Well, this is it. The game is rigged. Mm-hmm. The game is rigged from the media. It's not, and I tell Republicans this all the time. It's not the ballot box that you're losing. The game is rigged by pop culture and the media, because there's so many low information voters out there. There's so many American voters that are a mile wide, inch deep, have no freaking clue what they're voting for. I would be willing to bet, like God honest willing to bet, 9 out of 10 voters in this country who are voting now through Election Day really have no idea what they're voting on with their local issues, local candidates, even state propositions and stuff, for the most part. I'm willing to bet they have no idea. If I were to send one of these if I were to send you out, Alyssa, and the people, the fans of this show have been asking for an Alyssa Silva segment in the podcast, maybe this will be it. We should send you out to just talk to random people on the street and ask them about the local issues or state issues that they're voting on. And I'm willing to bet it is less than 1 in 10 actually could speak intelligently on all those issues. And that's sad. I'm not happy about it.
No,
it's not funny.
I think it's accurate, though.
100% of the time, we get the government we deserve and vote for. A lot of reasons why people are bitching and moaning about their government, Alyssa, is because this is the government that they voted for. We've talked about it. It's like, listen, I'm under no auspices that California is going to be a purple or a red state anytime soon. Like that's obviously ridiculous. But it's like, for the love of God, everyone in California is unhappy. There's nobody happy.
Nope.
San Francisco, unhappy. LA, unhappy. Crime, homelessness, inflation, the economy, highest gas prices in the nation and the nation's history per capita. So that means back when Grandpa Ding Dong Podong Bill was paying 27 cents for gas, in the 1940s, the per capita, when you account for inflation, when you account for the time gone by, when you account for the growth of the dollar in the economy, Alyssa, we're paying the highest gas prices in history of the United States of America. Total. Right now in California.
I believe it. It's rough.
And yet the average Democratic voter in California blames that mean orange man with the weird hairdo. Like, it's like, you've got to be shitting me.
You know what? He's still out there making the gas higher.
I guess he is. All the way from Florida. My point is like, listen, people should do their homework, vote their hearts. This is America. It's your birthright. I'm for people voting. I'm for making voting easier. That's going to be an unpopular thing to say to Republicans on the show. I am for making voting easier, but I'm also for making elections more secure. You should have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are an American citizen to cast a ballot. Period. Local, state, or federal. These counties in California that let undocumented immigrants vote in local elections just because their kids go to the school board, that is not constitutional. And I get the argument. And I also understand why undocumented folks come here. I'm not taking a crap on undocumented people. This is one of the greatest countries in the world. Land of opportunity. This is where you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Come from nothing in Nicaragua. Journey like Abraham and the believers of old to a new promised land and make something of yourself. I get it. It's not legal. I don't think people should just be able to walk across the border freely. Don't get me wrong, but I certainly empathize, sympathize, and understand why they come. Everybody wants, I've been all over the world. You know this. Mm-hmm. I'm of the belief that 85% of the world, they all care about pretty much the same thing. Putting food on the table and taking care of their kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I get it. But it doesn't make it right or legal to just cross into the, I'm saying? There has to be deterrence and punishment for it. Like, otherwise we're not sovereign anymore. If the United States doesn't have its own borders, then why are we a nation? Right? So I understand both sides of the argument. I can be empathetic to the immigrants' plight while still supporting border security. I can be empathetic to the crimes of our past in this country against minorities in particular, especially in the antebellum South, and be pro ensuring that anyone, regardless of their creed, religion, or skin color, has equal access to vote, while still being pro making sure they're an actual citizen who should be voting or not committing voting fraud. I don't understand why the two have to be opposed to each other. But alas, one party's for one party's for the other, and here we are, we're off to the races, which is just tantamount to this bullshit that we're talking about, why we want this election to end, because it's insane. There's no reality here. Mm-mm. That's why we created the Oasis of Reality here at Election Recon, because the desert is growing out there, right? It's like the whole world is dying. It's just turning into this parched desert of echo chamber, partisan zealotry bullshit. And there's very few places like this, the Oasis of Reality, where you can come and just get it straight. And yeah, you're going to get my opinion from time to time. You're going to get your opinion. You're going to get our guest's opinion. But when it comes to just projecting the election, you're getting data-driven facts. You're getting data-driven facts. And that's what we're trying to provide you folks here. And we do. Do we, Alyssa, do we not, when we do the three-pointer segment, do we pick like, oh, we love you, you're so smart, you're the best, and we get them. We have fans, not many, but we have fans. Okay,
A couple.
You know what I'm saying? But do we do the the hug it out ones, or
No.
or do we let the opposition view have its point here?
We let them be heard, and they are heard.
That's America. I love it. I mean, I don't love those people per se, but I love the fact that we're a show that, hey, you want to come cuss us out and say what you got to say? No problem. It's America. You have a right. It's your birthright. Say whatever the hell you want, short of causing like bodily harm or mental harm to like these yokels who are bullying people in high school now on the TikTok and the Snapchats and the Instagrams and all that shit. Within reason, right? But you have a right to espouse your political beliefs and have a debate.
People don't like to debate anymore.
All right. Listener's cigar of the day is a Lot 24 Perdomo. Classing it up again. Classing it up again. I met a fan at a local cigar club out of nowhere. He goes, "You're the guy from that podcast." That was a really cool moment for me. But then he criticized my cigar choices, and I told him to kick rocks. So, listen, how you doing? How's your week?
Good. It's been long.
Yeah,
This election needs to end.
we're getting there.
It will come. But it's been long.
It's been long. It's been long. Alyssa, let's go ahead and dive right into the election snapshot. No interview segment today. There's just so much going on with the election. We decided to cut the interview segment today because, we almost went 2 hours last week, and Jeff said that's it. 90 minutes is the line. 90 minutes is the line. We're shooting for 60 to 90 minutes every show. That's what, because we can see like when people turn it off, right? Mm-hmm. When they're watching the retention on the YouTube and all that, and they give me all the statistics. So 60 to 90 minutes is going to be the goal from here on out. I went long. It's not we. It's me. Okay, let's be real. I mean, your job is to yank me, but you never do.
Nope.
Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look here at the election snapshot. A lot of changes this week, Alyssa. Republicans in their best position ever in our model. We expected this to come. All the fundamentals, and I think people need to pay attention to this, okay? Remember, our model, only 1/4 of our model is driven by polling. And you can check out our methodology at electionrecon.com on the ER predictive model tab. And explains everything that goes into it, right? But this is really where we're cutting down to the nitty gritty. Trends matter more, money matters less. Because the theory being, if you have all this money and it was working, it would be showing up. But we have a big problem this year. There is not a whole lot now. By virtue of my job and my business, I have the advantage of getting to see a lot of private polls. And that goes in. And same thing for Lauren on the Democratic side, right? And we don't share them with anybody, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, no one's passing secrets or anything like this, but we take a look at private polls. We keep them confidential. They're embargoed. We respect that for the folks that give it to us, but we do plug them into our model. But there is a dearth. There is a complete drought of public polls at the congressional district level. And it is a cause for concern. Because even though polling is just 1/4 of our model, it is the gasoline. Right, it is the gas that runs the engine. It's not the engine, but we need the fuel, and we have a lot less polls available to us now than we did at this time in 2020, and is going to be interesting. So it does have a confidence issue between Lauren and I right now. That being said, all the other fundamentals are in the Republicans' favor. Abortion it was starting to climb from 9 to 7 to 5 to 4 in the top issues in voters' minds in competitive districts. That's important, right? No one cares if it's a top issue in South San Francisco, right? Like, which is going to be safe dim no matter what, mm-hmm. Right? But in the competitive districts, abortion is just not, in the purple seats in this country, it's just not, Dobbs is not a factor. It's not a factor. Democrats are going to keep saying it is. The mainstream media is saying it is. Again, it's not a partisan point of view. It's just purely data. If it was there, if it was in the top 3, 4, 5 issues, I would say it. I would say, yes, Dobbs is playing. Republicans are in trouble. This was a blow to them. It's just not. It's not anywhere. And it's coming down to what we've been saying since day one. Cost of living, quality of life, protecting kids. Crime is out of control. A lot of Democrats freaking out because California 13, just south of us, our bordering congressional district here, John Duarte versus Adam Gray, which a tremendous amount of money has been spent on both sides in that seat. It's going to be a very close race, but that it flipped. And one of the reasons why it flipped is this national news story about this family, this Indian family that was kidnapped at their business. 8-month-old kid and one of the victims, and then taken out to a farmer's field and executed. You don't think that makes the suburban mother question her loyalty to the party that's soft on crime? That's just fact, folks. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Democrats can bitch and moan all they want about this defund the police and how it's been taken out of context. You're the dummies that chose that terminology. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the Republican Party said, hey, you know what, Dems, that'd be great. You should use defund. Maybe they did and the Dems listened. I don't know. That would have been a sweet play by the Republicans if that's the case. But, again, it's low information voters. And when you use stupid terminology for your wokeness, I'm telling you right now, we are watching a slow and painful death of woke America right now. It is dying because people are hurting. No one gives a shit about woke issues when they can't feed their kids properly, when they go from eating a stable meal to having to buy the top ramen we all did in college. That's not sustainable for a healthy and growing young child. Parents know this, right? They have different priorities than woke college students. Mm-hmm. So my point is this. All the fundamentals. This is why so many Democrats have wrote in and hated on us this week. All the fundamentals, all of them are trending against the Democratic Party right now. If anything, we are concerned that we are under-projecting Republicans now. I am way more worried. I got a question from a fan on a DM earlier this week saying, aren't you worried that you're going to be wrong, look like a moron, and Democrats are going to have a good night? No, I am not concerned about that right now. I am worried that Republicans are going to have an even better night than being projecting, and we're going to be way off and too close to the center because we're hedging too much. I really am. And, we could be wrong. Again, there is a lot of concern over low confidence polls or no polls at all out there for us right now. But here's what we follow, folks, because we get this question all the time. How does your model work? And obviously, we're not going to give every aspect of the secret sauce. I love it when reporters write into us and well, we want to see your model down to the detail. No, I'm not giving you my model. You guys are a hot effing mess. We're the ones that have been right the last 2 years, not you jokers. You see the methodology, but we're not going to show you how we make the secret meal, man. That come on, stop. It's proprietary. My point is this, though, is there's two things that I'll tell people, okay? Money is playing less in our model, so don't get this confused with what I'm about to say, but follow the money. Alyssa, follow the money. And we do because we're elections professionals who've been doing this a long time. Republicans are spending money in seats that the current mainstream media prognosticators would tell you they have no business playing in. Republicans are on the attack everywhere. They are on the attack everywhere. They have expanded their original target list threefold, and they're not out of money. Democrats are spending money in seats right now defending both on the Senate and on the House side. That if you watch the mainstream media, you're just a regular Democratic voter, you'd be like, why the hell are they spending that much money there? Well, it's pretty common sense. Obviously, their internal polls are showing that they have real problems. They wouldn't be spending money there if they didn't feel like they had to throw defense up. Democrats are on the defense everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Washington State, Oregon, now more likely than not to have a Republican governor on West Coast Oregon. Democrats, and this was a shocker to us, and it's the reason why New Hampshire has moved in our model this week, okay? It's not polling. But Democrats dropped another 3.8 million direct into the Senate race in New Hampshire, which if you just look at the polling, you would go, hey, it's completely safe. There's got to be a reason they're spending money there. It's another Republicans beat us up. It's another reason why North Carolina in the Senate stays on tilt, because Republicans continue to feel like they're on the defense there. Though I do believe it's going to probably finish in a lean to likely margin for Republicans at the end of the day. Everything we see in the polls is showing that late-breaking voters, based on all historical trends of the current situation, are going to break heavily for the Republicans. Not just a little. We're talking 4, 5, 6, and 1 of late-breaking voters right now are more likely than not to break for the Republican Party, because it's not this election. And the Democrats tried everything they could to make it a further referendum on Donald Trump and America First and MAGA, but that's not what this election is about anymore. And I don't think the Republican Party's done a particularly great deal, a particularly great job of making this a referendum on Joe Biden and the Democrats, who are in control. They're the party in power. Mm-hmm. I think the Republican Party's been terrible messaging and marketing in this election season. But what people see every day, high gas prices, high food prices, you can't buy a house, interest rates are out of control, housing market is crazy, the stock market's all over the place. Mm-hmm. People are holding off retirements now more than they can because they can't afford to live on what they projected they thought they could live on if they retire. It's a disaster economically for the Democratic Party, and nothing's going to change that in the next 3 weeks. Nope. Nothing. Crime out of control. There's no way in the next 3 weeks crime rates drop 25%. Inflation drops. It's a nightmare for Democrats across the board. And I don't know why the polling's not there, and I guess there's always something we can be missing. There's always some new factor. Maybe it is some tribalistic times, Alyssa, where people just don't give a shit if they're hurting that much and they're just going to stick with the Blues team because they're just ideologically locked in. But I doubt it. Yeah. History does not show that to be the case. So what we're going to be taking a look at, Alyssa, is the turnout model. Are those numbers meeting our expectations, our model's expectations? If not, our model will adjust. So the turnout is really going to be the major factor now for the rest of the election for us, and the big shift. But another thing that could really shift things is because there's so few public polls out. As public polls come out, if there is a groundswell public polling, that could also shift our model. So for everybody asking what's going on with our model, that's what's driving our model. That's what's driving our model right now. And that's in a 30,000 foot level. That's where we're coming up with this. Republicans, Alyssa, now 59% chance in our model's opinion, up from 51, 52 to take the Senate. House of Representatives, Republicans now 88% to take the House. So big changes this week. Alyssa, let's go to the flips for the week. We'll put them on the screen now. Oregon governor has finally flipped red in the election recon model. Christine Drazan is now on top of Tina Kotek and Betsy Johnson. And this is another reason why the Republican is slipping in here. It's because there is a strong independent candidate that is sucking votes from both sides, but more from the Democrats. Christine Drazan appears to be on her way. She has very healthy polling numbers right now in Oregon. That is flipped from tilt Democrat to tilt Republican in our model. In the Senate, big move today. This pissed off all the Democrats. The hate came strong. Pennsylvania flipped in our model. And there's a lot of Democrats that said there hasn't been one poll that has shown Oz, the Republican, up over Fetterman, the Democrat. But we have to take into account in the last 4 election cycles, the polling error that has favored the Democratic Party has been on average about 6.5 points. And Oz is well below 6.5 points right now. It's like 3, 4, 2, depending on who you believe in. And I think that's going to close. I really do. And fundamentally, we take a look at it. Fetterman is not healthy. Fetterman continues to gaffe over and over and over again on TV. Democrats are now trying to play like the race card, but like the disability hater card. Like, well, he has a disability, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're not saying he's a bad person. We're saying voters are looking at him as like, yeah, he has a disability. I don't know if I want him to be one of 100 votes nominating justices or voting to go to fucking war. I think the voters have a right to be concerned about that. If you're cognitively not there, it's not your fault. If you listen to Mark Kelly's wife, her name's escaping me right now, the congresswoman who was shot in the head in Arizona, very Democrat. Many years ago, she was shot in the head and she lived, and she did not, she was already running for election that year, but then she finished her term. She didn't run for election again. Okay. And God bless her. I'm happy she survived. And, but as someone who has a TBI, okay, and those people have even worse traumatic brain injuries than I do. I'm like, there are cognitive deficits that have to be looked at. Like, you have to consider that. Like the reason why I think Joe Biden's polling numbers are atrocious is we're on the brink of war in the world right now, and they're worried about the guy who has his hand on the nuclear launch button. I don't know if the voters believe he can even find the nuclear launch button if it's put right in front of his face right now. And I'm not saying that to be mean. It's just fact. Everyone can see that the President of the United States and this guy, John Fetterman, the Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania, has cognitive problems. The man had a stroke. It's not his fault. These things happen. But I think it's fair for the voters to question whether or not this guy is competent enough, disability or not, to serve in the United States Senate. And for that reason, I think, Lauren thinks, and our model thinks, late-breaking voters are going to break very hard against Fetterman for Oz. And there's a lot of people that don't like Oz in Pennsylvania, but I think they're going to have to plug their nose and go, hey, at least this guy knows where he's at. California 13, we already talked about it. John Duarte now on top of Adam Gray by 0.1 of a percentage point in our model. It's very close. I think early voting will really dictate where that finishes up for us. But it's going. We think California 13 is going to be a very close election this year. We think 27, 22 in California is going to be very close. We think 13 is going to be very close. But if they're not, if we're wrong, and Republicans are having if Republicans are performing above our model's expectations, well, then we're going to be looking at California 9, California 21, Katie Porter's seat down in L.A., these seats that Democrats and the mainstream media think are safe, and right now so do we. But if we're wrong, and they are really wrong, we're going to be taking a look at those seats and seeing if Democrats are going to have a historically bad night in California. So if Republicans are having a good night, they could flip another 3 or 4 seats, and that would be a bad night for the Democrats. So keep that keep it with a grain of salt. Keep that in your mind. Rhode Island second, and this is what I'm talking about. The Democrats are now losing a congressional seat in Rhode Island. Heavily Democrat Rhode Island. Alan Fung, Republican, now on top of Seth Magaziner. Maybe his name is the reason why he's having problems. Probably not a good time to have MAGA in your name, last name. But no, I'm sure that's not the case. But my point is Alan Fung is just running a better campaign. He's messaging well. He's a moderate Republican in a district where only a moderate Republican can win. And Rhode Island, second congressional. Now tilt Republican. Let's take a look at the non-flips. A lot of them this week. We'll start with the GOP. We'll start in the GOP's favor. New York governor. This has been a surprise. I was laughing when Trafalgar and all these groups started coming out with polls showing Lee Zeldin starting to climb on Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul. But this is, again, what I'm saying. Democrats are under attack everywhere. This is a safe governor seat that the Democrat Governors Association is now having to shift money to defend a seat that they shouldn't have to be spending money to defend. New York governor, from likely Democrat now to lean Democrat in our model, which means there's a puncher, a real, more than a puncher's chance that Lee Zeldin, a Republican congressman from New York, could be the governor of New York. Why? When you look at the polling, Alyssa, and the trends, crime, inflation, Democrat policies are suffering in the minds of the voters. Even soft Democrats are rebelling against the progressive policies. Pennsylvania governor goes from lean D to tilt D. Wisconsin Senate, once a battleground in our model, tilt Republican to lean Republican, and it's on its way to likely. New Hampshire Senate, lean Democrat, tilt Democrat. Washington State Senate, likely Democrat to lean Democrat. The Democrats are under assault everywhere across the country. California 21, safe Democrat to likely Democrat. Oregon 4th, lean Democrat to tilt Democrat, and could flip before Election Day. Oregon 6, likely Democrat to lean Democrat. And that's another seat we're going to be looking at, a seat that Republicans have no business competing in. And they're under assault everywhere because independents are against Democrats now almost 2.5 to 1. Michigan 7th, lean Democrat to tilt Democrat. New Hampshire 2nd, lean Democrat to tilt Democrat. 3 seats in the Democrats' favor. Surprisingly, governor's races. Oklahoma governor, safe to likely Republican. South Dakota governor, based off of polling, safe to likely Republican. Utah Senate, likely to lean Republican, but here's a caveat. The Republican Senator Lee is not running against a Democrat. He's running against an independent. It's the independent that's gaining on him. There's not a serious Democratic candidate there. So in the one Senate race that is moving away in our model from Republicans is because he's running against a third-party candidate who used to be a Republican, Evan McMullen. It's just not looking good for the Democratic Party. That's just the truth of the matter. Let's take a look at the Real Clear Politics average here, Alyssa. In the congressional vote, Republicans back up to a one point lead. And in our model, I should say that we have it now a 2.1% generic ballot for Republicans in our model. Again, we weight the different polls based off their historical accuracy. And of course, whether they're likely voter or registered voting polls. So, that's why ours is a little different, where Real Clear Politics just throws in the average. They don't weight the polls.
Oh, okay. So
that's the difference for you guys out there. So we're 1 point for Republicans. It's 0.9, but we'll round up for Republicans. It's about a 0.4% improvement from last week, largely being driven by Rasmussen's reports poll as Republicans +7, but at least it's likely voters. Economist YouGov Political Morning Consult. I'm going to trash these guys till the end of the election. Democrats +2. Democrats +4. The difference between those two polls, which used to mirror each other, is YouGov Economist has gone to a likely voter screen, and Morning Consult and Politico, just an absolute worthless poll, still at registered voters. Susquehanna, a poll that we think very highly of, they have it tied, and we can be convinced that it could be a neutral electorate. Insider Advantage, Republicans +3, NPR Marist. Democrats +3, but we don't like Marist as a pollster either, though it is a likely voter screen. And it is within the margin of error for their poll. So we'll give them credit where credit's due. And of course, News Nation, Democrats +1, Trafalgar, Republicans +5, Data for Progress, a Democratic poll, who sampled 7,380 likely voters. So a very robust poll. Now, you would think, Alyssa, like, okay, well, the more you sample, the better it is. But the more you sample, the more prone you are to response bias and noise, right? There's a reason why national polls are generally between 1,000 and 2,800. There's a reason why most pollsters do that. So why Data for Progress went to 7,380, I don't know. Republicans +2. But a very Democratic pollster. Monmouth, Republicans +2. So that's where that stands. Take a look at Joe Biden's approval ratings. He is hanging barely above double digits down. He's at 9.8 underwater. Just a slight tick improvement for him this week. But the 3 of the last 4 polls in the average here for Real Clear Politics, he's double digits underwater. So that may be a hint of trend that the president's approval is going down, which I suspect it will, because if you follow this, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you follow this, when did gas prices start getting out of control? His approval rating really got crazy when gas got crazy. 43.3% approve in the RCP average of Joe Biden, 51.3% disapprove. It's a 9.8 difference in spread. However, four of the last three polls that have come out this month on his job approval, -11, -15, Economist YouGov, again, I don't want to get into it with these morons, -3, and Politico Morning Consult, -12. So, House forecast for RCP, Republicans have improved a notch. Now 70% chance for the House to go to the Republican Party, 30% chance for the Democrats. Again, we strongly disagree with 538 here. We think it's much higher than this. But, again, people don't understand statistics when they scream and yell at Nate Silver and 538. What he's saying here is that Republicans have a 7 in 10. Why he says that slightly, I don't know. I don't know why he uses that terminology, because I don't think a 7 in 10 chance of you hitting is slight. But he says 7 in 10 Republicans are going to hold on to the House. So even in 538's model, it's trending Republican late in the game. And trends matter. Momentum matters in election, heading into Election Day. In the Senate forecast, Republicans are also gaining. We strongly disagree with the Senate model, but Republicans now 34 in 100 to take the Senate. Democrats just 66 in 100. So basically 1 in 3 versus a 7 in 10, right? So Democrats are 2 in 3, or 6.5 in 10 to hold the Senate. Is pretty much what they're saying there. So very interesting. I just want to highlight just a minute. We have strong disagreements. Obviously, Pennsylvania has flipped red in our model. And 538 has Pennsylvania 71% chance to go to the Democrats, so they don't have it very close at all. In Georgia, they have almost a 60% chance of Raphael Warnock winning, and I don't know if they're like factoring in a runoff where he's going to win, or they actually think he's going to win it outright. But their forecasted vote share is 50.3, so that would mean they're forecasting him to win without a runoff. I think they're crazy. In Nevada, this one irks me the most, that they still have Catherine Cortez Masto winning when there's one poll in the last 10 that shows her up, and none of the fundamentals in Nevada support. I have no idea. Like this, it's this race right here in Nevada, which makes me question 538's ethics and methodology. That really is I would love to sit down with someone from 538 and go, explain to me. You don't have to show me the secret sauce, but explain to me how you got here. This makes no sense, even if you read their methodology. This doesn't add up. I don't understand this one. In Arizona, again, we strongly disagree. They have Mark Kelly an 81% chance of beating Blake Masters. That one's confusing as well. Neither here nor there. But we want to show you some differing views, so this is why we show you folks 538, who obviously there are now stark differences in our model from their model, just as there have been the last 2 years. The difference is we've been right, they've been wrong the last 2 years. So let's go to Big Data Poll. Big Data Poll generic ballot, no change from September 3rd, but he is funding right now. I knew he's going to go back in the field with more crowdsourced funding. So again, you can go to Big Data Poll, folks. Go to Big Data Poll, and you can go scroll down here to the Public Polling Project, and you can donate now. Looks like he's just over 50% done to fund that. So, and we are going to give some money ourselves, because we're very interested in seeing where Big Data Poll feels the generic ballot is. Highly rated poll in our model. So, taking a look at the election snapshot, updated yesterday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. The U.S. Senate, now 51 seats for the Republicans projected, 48 for the Democrats. We have one runoff, that's Georgia. The United States House of Representatives, 232 now for the Republican Party, 203 seats projected for the Democrats. And in the governor's mansions, we have now 30 seats, 30 states and 50 in the United States projected for Republicans, 20 for the Democrats. No change in state legislatures, 32 upper chambers for Republicans, 18 for the Democrats. Lower chambers, 33 for Republicans, 16 for the Democrats. And that is the election snapshot this week. It's a lot to cover.
A lot to cover.
But here's the top line. Republicans have the momentum. Mm-hmm. That's fact. And I mean, you know, you're working elections this year. I mean, everyone's seeing it. Everyone's feeling it out there.
Mm-hmm.
People are hurting, and it's not so much R&D. It's not so much ideology. It's just Democrats are in power, Republicans are not, and it's going to be a bad year for the party in power.
Mm-hmm.
That's people are hurting. Things aren't going well, and voters are going to take their frustrations out on the party in power. It's how it was in 2018 under Donald Trump and the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Democrats had a shellacking, plus Russiagate, right? So I mean, it's not rocket science.
Nope. But they make you think it is.
They do. It's really not that hard. Alyssa, we're going to go ahead and go to the Grunt's perspective. No interview segment today because we had so much to cover with the election. But the Grunt's perspective, this is the part of the show where I get to pick something to opine about, to complain about, to take my frustrations out on, to share my opinion with all of our viewers. In the Grunt's perspective, what do I hate more than anything?
A hypocrite.
I hate the mainstream media. I hate them.
Oh.
I hate them, and because they're hypocrites.
Oh.
You got it right. I hate them. Alyssa, I really hate them. I hate the local medias, too. I mean, you know how I feel about our local newspaper, the Modesto Bee. I would have more respect for our local newspaper, the Modesto Bee, and its fellow McClatchy papers up and down the Central Valley if they just came out and admitted the truth. Yep, we're in the tank for the left, and we feel like progressive policies are what's better for our region, and that's what we're going to support. If they would come out and say that and just admit that, hey, we're not going to call balls and strikes fair, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But when you shrill, when you try to act like you're a umpire or referee of fairness and equality around here, but I can predict every single endorsement you make from an editorial board's perspective. You're not calling balls and strikes fair. That's all I got to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
The media is a disaster to this country. Outside of our national debt and the outbreak of World War III, I think the real long-term problem in American culture and society is that the media isn't the media anymore. We don't have journalism. We have opinion prognosticators. We have opinion opiners. We just have people in the tank pushing the media on both sides. There's just more of it on the left, right? But everyone in the media is either in the tank for the right or the left, and they might as well be paid by the Republican National Committee or the Democratic National Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Just extensions of the communications arms. That's not what the media is supposed to be in this country. The Washington Post, one of the worst culprits of mainstream media bias nationally there is, their whole catchline is democracy dies in darkness. Yeah, you're the one who's turning off the fucking light. Good grief.
It's ridiculous.
Your dog's trying to get on the podcast.
I know.
Is she not happy with you?
She's not happy.
She's not happy with you.
It happens.
Alyssa, we love Callie.
We do.
I don't know why Callie. We should let Callie on the comment in the comments section below if you want Callie on the podcast next week. Okay. Callie,
she's really cute.
Callie the Wiener dog on the podcast. Alyssa, the Grunt's perspective is there's a very close race in battleground Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Trump-endorsed America First candidate who's in the lead. Her name is Kari Lake. She's a former news personality. Pretty much the progressive Democrats' worst nightmare. They do not want this woman elected. Okay, if you're a progressive Democrat in Arizona, you should be shaking in your boots. I get why you're terrified of her. She stands for everything you don't stand for. Obviously, on the counter, if you're a conservative, you love her.
Mm-hmm.
She's running against this woman, Katie Hobbs, who reminds me of former California State Assemblywoman Chrissy Smith, who's running against Mike Garcia for the third time. An empty suit. That's what Katie Hobbs is. She's an empty suit. And that's why Arizona isn't getting behind her. She hedges too much. She's trying to please both sides. She just can't win like that in today's electorate. Kari Lake stands for something.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she has momentum. Katie Hobbs is a finger licker into the wind. But here's why she's not going to win. I'm telling you right now. I will be stunned. I will eat crow on the show after election night. But I'm telling you, it's over. Katie Hobbs is going to lose. And not for anything except for she's a feckless coward. And here's why.
A debate drama unfolding tonight in the race for Arizona governor after Democrat Katie Hobbs refused to debate Republican Kari Lake. Lake was to appear by herself on PBS tonight, questioned by a moderator.
Well, that all changed this afternoon when Channel 8, the PBS station, suddenly offered Hobbs a chance to also appear for a half-hour solo interview that would be held next week. Well, the Clean Elections Commission, which puts on these debates, says Channel 8 broke the rules booking Hobbs after she backed out of the debate.
Fox 10's Irene Snyder joins us now live to try to sort all of this out. There have been a lot of moving parts today.
Definitely, John and Christina, good evening. Definitely a lot of moving parts. This was the night when the candidates for Arizona governor were invited to face off in a debate. As you mentioned, Katie Hobbs refused to debate. Now, Kari Lake says she's frustrated and upset that Katie Hobbs is still being offered that platform, being offered a 30-minute interview with PBS.
This is a tradition that Katie Hobbs is single-handedly destroying for the people of Arizona.
I'm not interested in being a part of Kari Lake's spectacle or shouting match. After refusing to debate former TV news anchor and Republican candidate for governor Kari Lake in tonight's Arizona Clean Election Commission debate, PBS still offered Democratic candidate Katie Hobbs a half-hour interview to air next week.
They reached out to us and we responded. I'm not sure on their end anything that happened, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk directly to voters.
And what's going on here is absolutely wrong. Now, I know, let me assure you, if the tables were turned and I had been cowardly and I refused to debate, then we would not have the same thing happening today.
Late this afternoon, the Arizona Clean Elections Commission postponing Lake's 30-minute Q&A set to air tonight on PBS, following the announcement of Hobbs' interview. The commission calls it disappointing, especially following multiple attempts on behalf of all partners involved in producing this year's general election debate to organize a traditional gubernatorial debate between the two candidates. Fox 10 spoke with Hobbs as she made calls to voters in Mesa today.
Andy, this is Secretary of State Katie Hobbs. How are you?
She says she's not interested in debating Lake.
Talking to voters across the state, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, who are tired of the spectacle, and they want someone who's going to get to work tackling the issues we're facing.
Lake argues that Hobbs should not be rewarded with airtime after refusing to debate.
You keep reminding the world that you're a coward and afraid to do a debate. She said I might yell at her.
She ain't lying.
I would never yell at somebody. Only cowards would say something like that.
And PBS also responding in a statement that it is their responsibility to provide access to the candidates so that the public can make an informed decision. And as for Kari Lake, she is requesting, or she's hoping that Katie Hobbs will debate her on Tuesday during the scheduled PBS interview time. Reporting live.
Here's my problem. PBS, what does it stand for? Do you know? Public Broadcasting Service. Why is it called public broadcasting, Alyssa?
For everyone.
Because you pay for it. The taxpayers of this country pay for it. The taxpayers of Arizona, right, left, center, Republican, Independent, Democrat, fucking pay for it. But PBS long has been in the pocket of the Democratic Party.
That's wrong.
I listen. If I were in Congress, PBS. If I ever run for Congress, well, I'm not ever going to, but maybe I go crazy and I run for Congress. PBS better throw everything they have against me, because it would be my sole purpose in life to defund PBS and NPR, who are given the airwaves for free by the taxpayers of this country and can't call balls and strikes down the middle. First, you're going to give a 30-minute interview. You're going to give a 30-minute interview to a woman, a sitting Secretary of State of Arizona, who refuses to debate her Republican challenger. And why, Alyssa? Because we're seeing this everywhere. Just this week, down in David Valadeo's district, Rudy Salas, a sitting California State Assembly member, Alyssa, didn't even show up to the debate. That was a televised debate, just didn't show up. We saw here locally in the 22nd Assembly District, the Democrats show up 45 minutes late to a Chamber of Commerce forum in Patterson. Jessica Self over the Democrat, Juan Alanis the Republican. We're seeing it across the nation. Democrats refusing to debate Republicans. Why? Because they're losing on all the issues of importance. It's a no-win for them.
Nope.
If I was a campaign consultant, I'd probably tell Katie Hobbs, hey, guess what? Well, I am a campaign consultant, but you know what I'm saying. I understand the strategy. Like it's a lose-lose. You show up on the debate stage, you're going to get slaughtered. Mm-hmm. Kari Lake would wipe the floor and has wiped the floor with Katie Hobbs.
She knows that.
Who is a terrible candidate. I cannot believe this is who the Democrats selected. She's terrible. She's a horrific candidate. And now she's a coward. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you what, in different states you can get away with it. I think you can get away with it in California.
Yeah.
I think you can get away with it in Washington State. But there's certain states you can't get away from it. Wisconsin, Arizona. Why do you think Senator Mark Kelly just had a debate last week with Blake Masters? Mark Kelly is a veteran. He is an astronaut. This is an accomplished dude. Mm-hmm. And Blake Masters wiped the floor with him. He eviscerated him. If it was a boxing match or an MMA match, Alyssa, the ref, would have stopped it out of mercy. I mean, Kelly got obliterated in that debate on every issue of importance save one, abortion. But even then, Masters masterfully turned the messaging back on Kelly. He hammered him on immigration, on inflation, on the economy, on crime, on homelessness, and Mark Kelly's voting record, which almost is identical to the Democrat majority leader's voting record in the Senate. This is why Democrats are refusing to debate. But there's some states like Arizona where the voters care about courage. Katie Hobbs is not a courageous woman. She's not a courageous politician. She's not a courageous leader. Kari Lake is right to call her a coward. I'm not saying I agree with all of Kari Lake's political issues. But I'm going to tell you right now, folks, if anybody's listening from Arizona, do you think for 1 minute Kari Lake would ever not show up to a debate stage again, or someone who will at least stand up and look in the camera and tell you what she believes in, whether you agree with it or not? And that's the Grunt's perspective this week. And shame on PBS. Horrific.
Does not look
how
good.
dare you? She could have ample time. If PBS gave a shit about electoral integrity or preserving the traditions of Arizona, they would say, sure, we'll cover you. We'll give you time on a debate stage with Kari Lake. You don't want to do the commission's debate? Do one on our show. We'll set it up for you. You both can come on for an hour. Mm-hmm. You'll get 30 minutes, she'll get 30 minutes, but you're going to do it side by side because that's how we do elections in this country. Screw PBS. I hope beyond hope, a Republican government in the future strips that piece of crap channel and its partner NPR of its money until they can learn to play. Listen, it's not CNN. It's not a network, okay? It's not a private entity. This is a public entity. This is a public entity that the taxpayers fund. You don't have the right to take a political side.
Nope.
I'm sorry. You don't have a right to put your finger on the scale. Shame on PBS, and that's the Grunt's perspective. Your thoughts? Am I crazy? Am I wrong? Am I being over dramatic here?
No, I think as a leader you have to make a lot of really tough decisions, and like people aren't going to be happy with you. You not even being able to show up to a debate shows that you can't make the hard choices, that you're just going to give in to what the people want.
Arizona's got a lot of problems right now.
Yeah.
Least or most of which is water. How are you going to negotiate with the other Great Basin states and powerful California, which controls a lot of the water for the Great Basin?
They won't.
How are you going to stand up to Gavin Newsom, Katie Hobbs? How are you going to stand up to him? I'm going to tell you right now, love or hate Gavin Newsom, he often gets his way because he doesn't know how not to. How are you going to stand up to him for your state? You can't even face a former TV news personality on a debate stage. You think you're going to sit next to a career politician with more pomade around his hair than any? I mean, stop. Gavin Newsom hair joke. Sorry. But my point is you got to have a set of ovaries, lady.
Does not look good.
Good grief. Good grief. No leadership. She's a feckless candidate. I've been saying it all year long, and this is just the final nail in the coffin, I think. This is opinion. Our model still thinks that it's a tilt race, so this is opinion, not our unbiased projections, okay? Josh Whitfield's opinion is that was the final nail in the coffin in Katie Hobbs' race for governor of Arizona. It's over. I know Arizonans. I have a lot of friends in Arizona. I've done a lot of races in Arizona, and the one thing they hate more than anything is a coward. Look at how many times they voted for John McCain, whether you agree with his politics or not. That man did what he wanted to do. Look at Kristen Sinema, who's giving her finger to the Democratic Party on issues right now. Arizonans are a different breed of voters, and they like a maverick, and they like people who stand for something, even if they disagree with some of those issues. And I'm telling you right now, there's only one candidate in the race for governor who stands for anything individually. That's not just her party's talking points. There are a lot of Republicans. I'm telling you right now, I know personally, I've had conversations with senior Republican leaders. There are a lot of Republicans who are not super excited at the fact that Kari Lake's probably going to be a governor, okay? Because she's going to be another governor that doesn't walk the party line. She's going to walk Kari Lake's line. I have more respect for that. Even though I do have disagreements with her, I respect somebody who stands up for what they believe in. And again, I say, how many times do I say, show me somebody in American politics who agrees with you 100% of the time, and I'll show you two liars. I don't have to agree with Kari Lake on every issue to respect her. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway. This is Grunt's Perspective this week. Alyssa, we're going to go to the three-pointer segment. This is the time of the show where you get to write in and ask us questions. You can find us on social media. That's at Election Recon. At Election Recon. That's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can DM us or add us, whatever you want. You can email us at electrecon. That's elect singular, electrecon@gmail.com. But to increase your chances of getting your question answered, we request that you give us your name and town and state, name, town, and state. You can also go to the electionrecon.com website and to the Contact Us tab and send us a message directly as well. Those are the ways to get it done. And of course, lest I forget, you can comment in any of our videos on YouTube or DM us on YouTube as well. That is also at Election Recon. Because we didn't have an interview segment this week, Alyssa, we're going to, by decree of Jeff, we're going to do 5 questions, so it's more like the 5-pointer this week instead of the 3-pointer. So we're going to take 2 extra questions this week in lieu of an interview segment. We're going to give the folks, we're going to give the fans, we're going to give the people more time to engage with us. Alyssa, give me the first question. Let's bring the hate.
The first one, you kind of touched on it. It says, I appreciate you calling out Center Street PAC on Twitter. The poll with less than 200 RV for a congressional seat was sad. You are also right to point out that the election mafia silence on the poll is deafening. From Marvin W. in Oildale, California.
What was the name?
Marvin
from Oildale. Yeah, I mean, listen, Center Street PAC is their disgrace. They're disgrace. They're just pushing narrative. Everyone, even our sitting Democrat, agrees with that. We pulled them out of the model altogether. They're banned. They're the first officially banned poll in election recon history. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And what they really did is they had like more of like a national or a regional poll. I don't remember because I've seen so many polls in the last week, but they took like out of their poll, their real poll, they just took like the subsection of this congressional district out and made it and like threw it in as if it was a real poll. It's ridiculous. It's asinine. It's fake. It's unethical. It has zero integrity. And we're just done with them. And here is our point, editorially from our team here is the silence of the mainstream media, the hypocrisy and the bias is so deafening, and it's so frustrating because you want to sit there and they'll attack Republican leaning guys or Republican viewpoint guys like Trafalgar Group, Cali, even Real Clear Politics, which is generally why I guarantee you folks from every party, every political geek and nerd like me, Alyssa, who's spends his career or her career in politics, everybody goes to RCP for their news. Most people the first thing they do in the morning is open RCP to see what the political news of the day is. And yet they'll attack them because they don't follow the narrative. They just, hey, here's what the polls say. Here's where the average is. Here's our projections. You know, I respect RCP for that. And some of their editors and their staff have a right-leaning tent. That's true. But Sean Trend, I believe he's a fair guy. He's their elections analysis. I think he calls the balls and strikes right down the middle. So, you know, and then of course, I mean, the left hates Rich Barris. I mean, he's banned on 538. I have no idea why. I mean, I assume that Nate Silver thinks that his polling is fake or whatever. But I mean, we did an in-depth analysis, and if we would have found the same results, we would have said it. Like, hey, yeah, we think there's problems here. We think this guy is crazy. He's different, but I think he's more accurate. I think he's found an innovative way to poll in modern times where these other yokels, these old dogs can't learn new tricks. I think he's figured out a new trick to get it right. You know, and again, he's not somebody who's going to show the secret sauce, but he's transparent enough. And his poll, and when he releases the same stuff as any other pollster, right? Like when pollster, like, you know what I'm saying, like they don't, you know, the methodology, all that is there. So I don't know what more they want from Richard Barris, you know? In many ways, I think he's even more transparent than most polls. He goes above and beyond. But because he's not a part of the narrative machine, and he's vocally populist and like America First. Like he's a vocal populist guy. Populist conservative, so they hate that. They despise that, and I think it's because of his worldview and his personal politics, and it has nothing to do with his work. And that's a real shame. And then you look terrible. 538, NBC, ABC, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whatever. Mainstream media, you look terrible when you see everybody knows this Center Street PAC poll that we're talking about. I think it was out of Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, but 144 registered voters, not likely voters, registered voters in a congressional district. Nearly 1 million people and voters. 144. Stop it. Stop it. Next question.
It says, I enjoy my time at the Oasis of Reality. Really enjoying this channel and podcast. From Freddie Holmes on YouTube.
I just opened the show. Which I got to read these things before we come on. I just opened it with, we don't take feel good, hug it out ones. And then we did. Damn it, Jim. Come on, Jeff. You set me up there. No, what, Freddie?
Yes.
Freddie, we're stoked that you like the show, man. Thank you for being a fan and following us on YouTube. And you said YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for being a fan, following us on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, we do it. We first started doing this again for our friends who are vets. The original 3 before we let civilian Alyssa on. All vets and in politics, right? And so we first started doing this kind of like on Discord with a small group of veterans friends. So originally this was for vets by vets. It really still is that way. But we just realized that there's just so much bullshit in the world. Like someone's got to just tell the truth. Someone's just got to go out there and while all of us have our biases, someone's got to go out there and try to call balls and strikes fairly, right? Someone's got to try to be an honest broker of the game. And there's not very many of those folks out there. That's just the fact. And we're happy that you found us. Freddie, you will always have a seat at the bar here at the Oasis of Reality. Next question.
Would you please address Sarah Palin's situation in Alaska? Can she win her House race? Thanks. From Russ UP Mitch from Twitter.
Yeah, Alaska's a tough one. We've spent a lot of time last couple weeks in particular talking about Alaska. It's got a ranked choice voting system, which is weird. And I think what concerns us about our modeling for Alaska, our forecasting for Alaska, is we missed one state in 2020 for the Senate, and we missed it bad, and it was because of polling, and all the polls missed it as well. But again, we hedge against polls, so we shouldn't have missed it that bad. And it was Maine. It was Maine, and we had Susan Collins losing by quite a bit. And not a lot, but we had her losing. We had we went into election night with no doubt Susan Collins was going to lose her seat, and she won by a lot, and she won it quickly. It was called pretty early. And ranked choice voting didn't even apply there, but we try to build it in. Like we had like an experimental thing, and we're trying to work it out. Like, okay, if this gets to ranked choice, how will this work out? All this. We don't think we found a good way to forecast ranked choice voting yet, and we don't trust the polls that test it. We don't. That being said, I would be surprised if our model has the Republicans holding on to that or winning, taking that seat back because a Democrat just won it in a special election. I think Mary Patola, my personal belief, our model so has it tilt R. But I think that we have not found a good way to forecast the ranked choice voting situation. And I haven't seen anything that would suggest that listen, if one of the two Republicans, Mark or Sarah, in Alaska dropped out, well then yeah, I think Republicans would win overwhelmingly. It'd be a safe Republican seat. Or a likely Republican seat, but they haven't. You have two stubborn Republican candidates that refuse to get out and back the other one. You would think because Sarah Palin came in second that the other guy would drop out, but Sarah and this guy hate each other. And pride is going to probably prevail over common sense. And this lady doesn't have a voting record yet in terms of in Congress, really. And she's. Folks like to attach their star to the first time things, right? This is the first native Alaskan, I think, who has ever been elected to Congress in Alaska. And I think that means something to Alaskans. Just like Arizona is. Like Alaska's a weird state. It's not your traditional Republican or Democratic states. They throw weird things at you from time to time. Everyone, I think most people in the lower 48 look at Alaska like, it's Montana or Texas or Idaho. It's not. Alaska is very different culturally. They're separated from mainland America, between Canada. They're closer in geography to Russia than they are to the United States. Large Native American population. It takes forever to count votes there because literally, I'm not shitting you. I've done races in Alaska. The poll workers have to get into bush planes and fly hours into the most remote parts of Alaska to pick up 7 votes in one precinct. It's a geographically huge state with not a lot of people living there. So, and it's rugged. There's places in Alaska you cannot drive a car to ever. You have to fly. And it's dangerous to fly in Alaska in the winter, right? Like literally people have died in Alaska doing pole working, okay? Like because it's treacherous. It's the last great frontier of the United States. So Alaska's a weird deal. I would say there's probably not a house race on our map that we have less confidence in our own projection than Alaska. So take that with a grain of salt. Again, we can own it. Like what we're trying to tell you is we have not figured out a good way to project ranked choice voting states. The good news is there's very few of them, and even in like in Maine, we saw in 2020 where ranked choice voting didn't come into play because Susan Collins had an outright majority, so it didn't matter. So really polling was to blame for Maine, but also we were trying to play with ranked choice voting, and I think we further hurt ourselves in that modeling projection. So we'll have to wait and see. And if anybody knows a better way to do it, man, we're all ears to learn for the ranked choice voting, that's for sure. Next question.
My problem with your model and Real Clear Politics projections is that you are both just assuming that there is going to be a polling miss. What if you're wrong? What if polling miss is the other way? From Veronica E. in Los Angeles.
Well, okay, first, Veronica, you're just wrong. We don't do what RCP does. RCP has started something new this year where they're applying the historical trends of polling misses. And I think that's brilliant. I want to put that into our model, but we're going to wait and see. We're going to let RCP be the guinea pig. We're not going to make that major of a change to our model this late in the game. What we do that's similar but not like that RCP is we look at historical trends. So yes, the trends of not the polling error. The polling error. The only way polling error is affected is how we rank the pollsters individually. And we don't break it down by state. We're not that sophisticated. So we don't do that. So I don't know where you got that. That's just not true. RCP is doing it. We do like it. We are interested in seeing how that works out because here's what we know. And this is scientifically proven. You can do the research. There have been some polling misses that have favored Republicans in recent elections, but 90% of polling misses favor the Democratic Party by a lot. Like we said, Pennsylvania's average in the last handful of election cycles is 6.5 points missed. That's 6.5%. That's a 13-point swing. That's more than 1 in 10 voters. That's atrocious. That's almost unforgivable. That is unforgivable to have a polling error of that magnitude over and over again. We're not talking just one election. It didn't just happen in 16. It happened in 2020. It happened in 18 as well. It happened in 14. At some point, good forecasters are going to look at those trends, and I think that's what RCP is doing is like, gosh dang it, we have to account for this egregious error over and over and over again, and it always 9 times out of 10 favors one party over the other, and that's the Democratic Party. So I disagree with you, Veronica from Los Angeles. Thank you for writing in. We respect your opinion, but I think you're just so off base. Like, what? Our job is to try to get it right. And I think what Real Clear Politics is trying to do, what we're trying to do, is try to find some way, ultimately, at restoring the American public's trust in polling and election forecasting. And at some point, we have to hold the mainstream media and the polling industry accountable for their absolutely atrocious record in the last decade. Period, point blank. Next question.
Jeff gave you what you were asking for.
The hate?
This woman's a little too much.
We got some hate?
Yeah. Problems with people like you, Josh, worthless, and Rich Barley, coherent, and Red racist politics, and Jack pro-fascist, are you all jerk each other off and pretend to call it an intellectual discourse. F you fascist, racist, POS.
Well,
no one cares.
We're not done.
I hope you crash your car today.
Wow.
From Lady Jane's Revenge, 75. Call me crazy, but it appears that she does care. After she said no one cares.
Yeah, she cared enough to fucking write in, didn't she? Wow, I thought we were done. I thought, wow, that was a lot. And then she's rooting for me to crash my car, which I guess not out of the realm of possibility. Good grief. Lady Jane's Revenge is her name?
Yes, 75.
Well,
from email.
I'm glad that you're supporting a terrorist organization in this country. And that's what Lady Jane's Revenge is. Let's be clear. Attacking religious sites over the issue of abortion and destroying, especially Catholic, artifacts that are hundreds and thousands of years old out of spite of a Supreme Court legal decision is, in my opinion, an act of political terror. What's the difference, Lady Jane's Revenge, before I answer your stupid-ass comment, what's the difference between the Nazis at Kristallnacht destroying Jewish businesses and everything, and what you're doing to religious centers all over this country? What's the difference? What's the difference? You disagree politically and you're terrorizing people because of political decisions, period, point blank. Jane's Revenge is a terrorist group. If you're going to be one of these Democrats that sit there and go, January 6th was a terrorist attack, a domestic terrorist attack on our country, and you don't condemn this, you're a hypocrite. Period, point blank. So that's what I think of your dumbass name. Okay, so she called out a bunch of people. So I thought she was calling me worthless, but I think she was playing on my last name. Josh Worthless, right?
I think.
And then she said
Rich Barley.
Red racist politics, so that must be Red Eagle politics. Who was the other two?
Rich Barley Coherent.
Typo maybe. Rich Barley Coherent. Okay, I'm assuming she's talking about Rich Barris. I can't think of anybody
And then
else.
Jack Pro-Fascist.
No, so Jack Poe. Oh, okay. So, I don't even know.
Barely Coherent.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, barely could. Whatever. First off, I just want to say this, and here's the tolerant left. Here's the tolerant, and what's funny about it is we just had this big kerfuffle over my reaction video to Rich Barris. On the deal, there's no circle jerking. I love his body of work. He's given us a little bit of a shout out and respect on social media. We appreciate that. But we obviously strongly disagree on Ukraine. You know what I'm saying? Like, where's the circle jerk? Red Eagle Politics. We did a reaction video with him this week. But we largely agreed with a lot of what he said. But he's closer to an opinion guy. Like him and Let's Talk Elections. They're not, I mean, to my knowledge, maybe he is modeling, I don't know, but he doesn't like show it on his videos, this Red Eagle Politics guy. He's a populist voice, and what I like about Red Eagle Politics is I don't think he's racist or a fascist at all. He's a populist conservative, to be sure. But at least he owns it. Like he actively says, we're going to win. Our team's going to win. Like he's not hiding the fact of his biases. He's like, yes, I am a Trump, MAGA, America First, populist voice. This is what I believe in, and this is what my opinion is on the subject matter of the day, on the elections. Here's my projections. Where the young kid from Let's Talk Elections, I haven't seen that many Let's Talk Elections videos, so a grain of salt, full transparency, but the few videos that I have seen and the one that I reacted to, it appears to me that he comes across or tries to come across as an honest broker, caller of balls and strikes, and yet his liberal bias just seeps out of every pore in his little body. Okay, and that's the difference, like where I don't respect. So you want to talk about circle jerking? I don't know if you've met the modern Republican Party. We can't agree on the color of the goddamn sky. Like there's been a civil war raging in the Republican Party since 2010. That's unresolved, quite frankly. If it was just one big circle jerk, I mean, Rich Barris hammers Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell pretty much every show. And you know what? Sometimes he's right on point, in my opinion. Sometimes I think he takes it a little too far. But I respect Rich Barris stands for something. That's why I respect, even when I disagree, and we passionately disagree on some Ukraine stuff. Not all of it. I think he's very right on some of his criticism about Ukraine. But see, that's where I believe the people that you just mentioned were far more intellectual than you, Miss Lady Jane's whatever. Because we can take it issue by issue. We don't sit there, right, I didn't see I don't think Rich Barris, I'm sure he disagreed. He talks about Ukraine a lot, and, I don't know if he watched the video or he didn't watch the video, but I'm sure he disagreed with some of the things I said. I'm sure he's like, that fucking fat ass in California is an idiot on Ukraine. Just where I think he's wrong and think he's an idiot on some issues. But you know what? Does not take away the fact that I respect the man. He stands for what he believes in. It's the same shit going on with Tulsi Gabbard. Former congresswoman from Hawaii, just left the Democratic Party this week in protest because she has a long career being an anti-war, a check of power to the defense industrial complex in this country. She's an isolationist. She doesn't want America all over the world dabbling in stuff, and Tulsi Gabbard and I agree on some points and disagree on others. Like, in my heart, I want to be that way. Alyssa, in my heart, I want to be on Tulsi Gabbard's side. I think the corruption and the power that she points out that the defense industrial complex has is true. I think it needs to be talked about, and I think people like her and Tucker Carlson and Jack Pro and Rich Barris, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I think Rich Barris is a veteran as well. Jack Poe is a veteran. Used to be a high-level operator for this country, if I'm not mistaken, or an intelligence guy. I'm so tired. It's a damn election. But my point is I wonder if Lady Jane's talks too much over there, if we're going to give each other nicknames, ever put on a uniform once to defend this country. I don't know if she knows what the hell she's talking about. I guarantee you, Rich and Jack have disagreed on issues. I guarantee you, Ready Go Politics and Rich have disagreed on issues. We're all very opinionated personalities. And I bet you we could all sit down over bourbon and cigars and find a lot that we disagree with. But we are going to agree more often than we disagree because we have a conservative worldview. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We're entitled to believe. Just because we believe in something you don't believe in doesn't make us evil. I'm sorry. Debate is the fundamental medicine for the experiment we call the United States of America and this republic. We have to be able to disagree and talk to each other without accusing each other of being fascists and terrorists. Literally, Tulsi Gabbard has been accused repeatedly. This is a woman that was at one point the fastest rising star, a candidate to be the first woman president in the country for the Democratic Party. They used to love her, and she disagreed with them on one issue: Russia. And they disowned her. And now she's disowned them. That's the problem with this country, man. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're calling her a Russian agent. They think they literally on national television accused her of being on the payroll of Vladimir Putin. This is someone who still wears the uniform of the United States today in the Hawaiian National Guard. Wow. Just because she rightfully has concerns that we may be sucked into a shooting war with Russia, which only ends one way: nuclear holocaust. I support most of what we're doing in Ukraine. I support the strengthening of NATO. You know my feelings on Putin. I think there's a greater evil here, despite any issues or problems with the Ukrainians. I've been to Ukraine 8 times now since the war started. I have not seen one Nazi. Are there Ukrainian Nazis? There probably is somewhere. I don't know. I haven't seen them. I have seen a lot of people fighting their asses off trying to survive and hold their country together. That's what I've seen with my own 2 eyes. I've also seen the work. Russia, let's just be clear, Russia's using rape and murder and torture as a weapon of war. These aren't isolated incidents. This is methodical. This is planned. This is on a mass scale. It's horrific. Who's acting more like Nazi Germany? The Russian military or the Ukrainian military? I'm sorry. The evidence is overwhelming. Have war crimes been committed by both sides? I'm sure, in every war. American soldiers committed war crimes in Iraq, and we prosecuted them. I'm sure there's some that got away with them. War is a horrific thing that challenges the humanity of anyone who's involved in it. And some people can't hold on to it. But as passionate as I am about this situation in Ukraine, I would never call Tulsi Gabbard a fellow soldier, an officer who has served her country as an agent of Russia. I'm sorry. Prove it. That's a hell of an accusation to make. You're calling her a traitor. Prove it. Just because she disagrees with you, that's proof? Just because she doesn't want us over there? Just because she believes Russia has some legitimate gripes? Which I disagree with, but that's neither here nor there. My point being, that's evidence enough to call this woman a traitor to the nation? Just because you disagree with the 4 people, Lady Jane, whatever your name is, you're going to call us fascists, racists, and pieces of crap and hope that I wrap my car around something? I mean, come on, grow up. Grow up. Alyssa, final thoughts?
I don't know. I don't even know what to think after that last question. Or comment, I guess.
People are mean, man.
I think that's the problem with politics. You can disagree without telling someone to go crash their car. Or taking the time out of your day that you say that no one cares to write a hate comment.
This is why good people don't work in the business anymore.
Yep. 100%.
This is why it's tough to get good people to do the very important constituent service jobs that are part of every elected office. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone bitches and complains about the competency of government, and that's a fair criticism, Melissa, but for goodness sakes, right?
Be nicer.
Like, unless you have a call to serve others, which you and I do, that's why we do the job, right? In my entire adult life, since 17 years old, I've been in the service of the nation, some form or another, in public service. But if you're an intellectual, you're a smart person, and you know you can go make 100. Like, everyone thinks that government employees are making like $200,000 a year. That is so far from the truth. My point is this: if you're the best and brightest, would you rather go work for a Fortune 500 company and make buku bucks, or would you rather be a public servant and make much less and get treated like this day in and day out? Mm-hmm. Lady Jane's revenge, you are the problem. You're the problem. And there are people on the right that are like you. It's not a right. Like, the zealots are on both sides. The zealots are on both sides. But let's just be clear. January 6th was a tragedy to the country. It was a tragedy. No matter what way you slice it, January 6th was not a good day for America. It was not. No matter what side you're on or who you believe, that it was a sad day in American history. Show me another time where a conservative movement has, how many BLM riots did we see over multiple summers? How many churches has Jane's Revenge, the terrorist group? I don't know if this lady's affiliated or not, but, certainly she feels supportive with her name, right? Mm-hmm. How many churches have been targeted? How many pregnancy centers, like Christian pregnancy centers, have been targeted and barely covered, folks? A lot of you may be listening and go, I've never heard of this before, because the mainstream media is in the tank for one side. Mm-hmm. But go ahead and do your research. Go look up local news stories. It's happening. It has happened. How many Jane's Revenge folks have been prosecuted? Not many. How many people from January 6th have been prosecuted? A lot. How many members of Antifa have been prosecuted? Not many. How many BLM rioters have been prosecuted? Not many, and I don't mean BLM protesters. There's a difference. Most of the BLM protesters didn't burn buildings down, but there's a difference between a protest and a riot. We had a BLM protest in Modesto right next to us. Nothing burned down. There's a couple hooligans, a couple tear gas grenades thrown, but all in all, downtown Modesto did not suffer, thank God. We just got to call balls and strikes fair. If you truly believe, whether you're a politician or a member of the media, Alyssa, if you truly believe, I think this as my final thought as we wrap up here. If you truly love this country, you want that. You want the media to call balls and strikes fair. We have to learn to, oftentimes in democracy, we lose. I'm telling you, folks, you people on the left, I think you're getting ready to get a big fat L on November 8th. Just like the conservative movement took not a super big fat L, but a painful L nonetheless on 2020. How many people forget? Everyone says, well, the Republicans won't accept the election results of 2020 and blah, 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 blah. You did the same shit in 2016. I could throw up video after video of Democratic members of Congress protesting the count of the electoral vote. Yes, there wasn't a breach of the Capitol to try to stop it. That's fair. But let's be real. The rhetoric was the same. In 2016, the Democrat narrative, Alyssa, was that Russia stole the election for Trump. Not true. Proven false. We got to call it both ways. We got to call it both ways, right? I mean, am I wrong in saying that? I mean,
No.
I mean, like,
I think it's fair.
you're apolitical, you're Gen Zer. Like, am I crazy? Like, let's just call it both. Like, for the sake of the country and the world, we have got to get our shit together.
Yeah. Or else it's going to keep going downhill.
Because people like Tulsi Gabbard, they're right about one thing. We are on the precipice. And America's naive to it. We are on a knife's edge. There's no doubt about that. People should be very concerned. There should be lots of debate about what's going on in Ukraine. I believe that. We have to communicate with each other, because here's what I know about this. We have a lot more enemies outside this country than we do inside of it. And they don't give a shit if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're liberal or conservative. They hate you simply because you're an American. And with that, we'll see you next week.